warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good morning, class. Let's begin our class. Al-Fatiha. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, Alhamdulillah, this morning we are very lucky lah because Cik Fadzil Haron Cybersecurity Expert, bukan biasa-biasa punya orang. Bukan biasa-biasa sudi to share his knowledge, share some knowledge to us lah. The topic is about memory forensic investigations in incident response using Mitre attack framework. So I hope that you all take all this opportunity to learn and then to ask lah. Banyak-banyak soalan. Cik Fazil minta everybody tanya soalan. Cik Fazil, saya rasa nanti you can pick up yang mana-mana nama and then minta dia tanya. Biar dia orang get ready sentiasa lah. Okay. So I think without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Fadzil Haron to share his knowledge lah about memory forensic investigation in incident response. Okay, so Cik Fadzil, before that, maybe Cik Fadzil can introduce yourself first. Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I think everyone can hear me fine. If not, please raise your hand physically and virtually. So my name is Muhammad Fadzil bin Haron, and if you watch, okay, all right, good. All right. So if you listen to IKIM FM about 2016-17, you might heard a guy who's actually been on air with name of Adin Encik Adin Mat Said, right? So that was me, if you were listening. So I've been in the security field for almost 30 years, right? So in the US as well as in Malaysia, and in many industries, and have covered all domains of security, which is actually very few people actually in Malaysia have done that. Many who stick on one or two domains, but not many who actually has covered all domains in security. All right, so today I'm gonna talk about memory forensics investigation, how you basically perform the investigation during incident response. So when there's a cyber security incident, you have the incident response team to handle that incident. And usually the first thing they will do is to ensure that the event is a real incident or not. Many times it's a false positive, right? So they need to confirm whether it's a real incident or not. And many times the process of confirming whether it's an incident or not itself, many people lack the knowledge and experiences. So back during my days, more than 2 decades ago, we do not have such framework. Mitre attack framework doesn't exist. Cyber threat intelligence framework doesn't exist. So we came up with our own methodology and framework. And that's why back then, very little documents about security was actually widespread or basically viral or available and so on. Many people have to do their own research to know about ABC, while ABC up to Y and Z is already in as a SOP within a company's department, right? Such as mine before. So because of I basically attempted to do industrial PhD. Because of that, got rejected by my manager and the legal team because of the confidentiality of the documents and the processes, SOP and so on that we developed. All right, so that's a background. All right, and actually now I'm a CISO at fintech company, Singapore based, but I'm based in KL area, right, Klang Valley. All right. So first of all, that's the brief agenda. Let's take a look from the icebreaker perspective. For you to know about yourself, I know in UITM, because I was helping Dr. Fakir and the rest of the team before on establishing the masters in forensics. All right, so some or at least many of you will be taking some forensic courses. Where I think it's also good to know whether you meet some of the forensics criteria or attitude or personality. All right, so that's the icebreaker. I want to see whether you have that or not. If not, then you can train yourself. If you are, then you can enhance that further. Or security has a lot of areas that you can work at, not just forensics, but the knowledge would be useful for other areas as well. All right, some introduction. I will talk briefly about understanding about the threat modeling, and this is from the CTI Cyber Threat Intelligence Framework perspective, just to give an idea if you're not familiar with that yet. And then I'm gonna talk briefly about Mitre attack framework. This one is available on the web. I would strongly suggest for you to take a look and read about that. It is actually extensive detail about an attack that can occur on the host, right? So if an attack occurred on a host, then you can use the Mitre attack framework to detail out which of the area that you need to focus, what are the detail keys and entries that would be highlighted by the Mitre attack framework, right? So I'm gonna cover that a little bit, but I will cover the memory forensics and some of those because I used to do training 8 9 hours a day for 6 days straight. Uh, People say it as drinking from the fire hose type. So today I'm preparing a slide which is 97 pages in total. So bear in mind with me. If you have question, raise your hand. If you do not ask questions, you will be at a loss. That's my point, right? Okay, so if you don't ask question um, here, I will ask you questions. If you want to ask me questions outside, I will charge you counseling charges, consulting charges. Would that be fair? Here is free, outside is payable. Okay, some of the forensic attitude, personality of a forensic investigator. You must be detail oriented. You must be very particular because little differences in the evidence that you look at is potentially the the basically critical evidence that is required or needed in your investigation, and from that little evidence that's potentially become the trigger to other evidences that you might find later on. All right, so because of that, you need to have a good memory. You need to have very particular in looking at things, and you can see and differentiate the differences and so on. Of course, the tools will help you, other things will help you, the process SOP will help you, but from the personality perspective, it's good to be like Inspector Colombo. If you watch this drama series, is a detective in Los Angeles Police Department, um, but the actor has died in 2011. But his series was 80s, 70s to 80s, those days. Some of you not even born yet. But check it out in YouTube, um, and take a look at this drama series. There's a lot of things you can learn from it. He's very particular. He's very detail oriented. He has a very good memory about very little things that people talk about, things that he saw, and later on become the evidence of the investigation. Check it out. So because of that, Let's let's test your memory. I will show this picture for about 10 seconds, and then I will show the other picture of similar one. I would like you to find out um, how many differences that you can detect from your memory, all right? From your memory. Okay, so from now, 10 seconds, take a look in details about this picture. Try to memorize as much as possible. You got about 8 more seconds. All right, I will show you the other picture. Okay, find the differences in this picture compared to the previous one. I give you about 15 or 20 seconds. And yeah, you can put it in the chat. But the key is you can highlight and then calculate how many did you find. Okay, some people found the missing part. Okay, someone found 8. Anyone else? All right, so telescope was not there. Good. But how many did you find? All right, keep the number to yourself as well. If you want to put it there on the chat, it's also fine. All right, so that is from memory. All right, from the previous one, you took a picture inside your memory and you compare with this. Now I will put it side by side for you to see the differences. I give you about 10 seconds for this one, and uh, find out how many differences that you can find. About 10 more seconds. Sometimes I do play this game and I can do it within 10 seconds or less. Okay, done. All right, take a look. Did you find all of them? So in total, there are 10 of them. All right, this is the easy one. If I give you the detail, very small changes, I think you will have a hard time. So this is just to give an idea. When you do forensic investigation, this is what you're doing. You're looking at the evidence and you try to find what has changed, what has been done on the system, on the data, on the basically artifacts, and you try to um, find those, and then you put it into chronological order of all the events, and that become your evidence of what's going on. All right, so you try to re-establish the chronological order of the events from all the evidence that you found. All right, so now you can see that basically one knowledge in particular is not sufficient for you to be a very good forensic investigator. You need to have multiple knowledge of the forensic processes itself, the tools, the processes. You need to know about the operating systems. There are multiple of them. You got Windows, there are multiple Windows of OS. Each one is different. And then you got Mac OS, you got Unix and Linux, and each one will be different. There are multiple flavors from Unix. You got OpenBSD, you got BSD I, and Linux, you got Red Hat, you got SUSE, and so on. There are many varieties of those flavors, right? So at the host level, you need to master that. And then at the network level, TCP/IP protocol must be like the fingertips, at your fingertips, right? And then you need to cover the CTI. the malware, the attack vectors, the TTPs, the tools being used, hacking tools, and so on. So that's a lot of areas that you need to master. But of course, you don't do it overnight. With if you're passionate enough, passionate about it, then you can learn over time. Uh, right. So this just to give you some ideas of areas that you need to cover in order for you to be a good one, right? So from the cyber threat intelligence, there is one framework called or concept called cyber kill chain. In the cyber kill chain, there's 7 steps. Reconnaissance, which is the first level, first phase of the attack, where the attacker will try to gather information about your host, your system, your application, whatever it is. So the target, they try to gather information about the target, whether it's running web, it's running version of it, what are the security controls, you have any firewall behind that, you got any WAF behind that, do you run web services, and so on, right? So that is the reconnaissance. So usually it involves scanning, could be very noisy. If it's very noisy, those are not professional one. Those are script kiddies, right? But the professional one, the very, I would say, a nation state kind of threat actors, they're doing it very, very stealthy and silently that even you're not aware, right? So they try to gather information about the target first. Once they gather the information, they will start building the capability, the malware, the exploit, whatever it is that will be required for them to attack your environment. This is where they use the skills, your programming skills. Nowadays, even there's malware as a service, right? So you just request whatever it is, you pay some money, and then you get the malware intended. So those are the weaponization. And one thing about weaponization, it doesn't happen in front of you. It happened behind the scene. So many times the threat actors will do it at their own environment to build those malware and exploits. So this is the purpose of cyber threat intelligence. If you are interested about cyber threat intelligence, their main focus is the weaponization. They try to gather information about the threat actors and so on, what their capabilities, what are their tools. So if you look at the cyber threat intel, they will have the basically the infrastructure. So that is the infra in the internet used by the attacker to attack. So they need to have IP address, they need to have a domain, they need to have email address, and so on. And then they have the TTP tools, technique, and procedures. So those are like the malware they use, and so on, right? And then they have their group, which is a TA, right? So that is the weaponization. And then you have the delivery. They need to deliver that exploit, all right? So they will deliver it through web exploit, whatever it is, right? And then has to execute it, exploitation, where they will, depending on the environment of the targets, they might automate that. If it's there's a vulnerability that they can do a remote exploitation. At the same time, they can do a privilege escalation. So that means they can run the exploit. Exploit will run on that web browser, for example, and then automatically elevate itself from a user level into administrator level. Once they get the administrator level, done deal. I mean, they can do everything. And then once the exploit is executed, they will install certain malicious code that they wanted. Many times during the exploitation, they will install the downloader. Once the downloader is installed, they will start downloading the rest of the malware required, whatever it is. So you just basically the gate is already open, and the rest is coming. So once they do that, they want to establish persistence so that they can continuously controlling the system. They will set up the command and control and make the direct connection to their server. And many times these are done in encrypted channel, right, and stealthy channel as well, using services that you cannot block. For example, is DNS, right? So who actually monitoring their DNS? Very few people. Once they do the CNC or C2, then their action on objective, whether they want to steal credential, they will collect password. They will, if they want to steal intellectual property and database, then they will exfiltrate those data and send it off, right? So that's a very high level. So once you know about those phases in attack, you need to know about the phases of what we call course of action. So based on that, this is actually based on my previous paper when I was cyber threat intelligence. So I was presented at FSISAC in Singapore conference. All right, so you need to understand about the protection that we have throughout our environment for each of the phases. As you can see, there's a lot of controls there, and the weaponization is empty because it's not in your environment. It's actually in the threat actors, the attacker's environment. We are still on page 10. We still have 87 to go, right? Um, so based on this, for forensic guys, you need to know for each one of them, extracting the logs and able to identify, okay, for this particular time range, right? What has happened, how the log look like, and so on. Okay, just give you an idea, the comprehensiveness of the skill set that you might need in order for you to be a good security guy. I'm not to scare you, but it's actually an opportunity. Nobody will know everything. This is where, besides your technical skills, you need to work with other people, and you need to be able to partner and team up with other teams who are actually, hey, for example, firewall and WAF, you're not your expertise. You team up with the network team who's actually handling the firewall and WAF. Okay, you basically asking all this information that you need, and you might be able to learn as well. So many times I learned all these security controls from those teams directly, right? And sometimes I help them to identify certain things that they are not aware themselves. All right. Good example is if you have a domain controller. Domain controller requires two-way trust. Sometimes you establish only single trust. And some of the capabilities, a good example is email. Email require two-way trust in order for you to receive and send email. So if the domain controller trust is broken, either both ways or one way, then you will see certain TCP handshake happened, but the response not happening. For example, you send a SYN request, but there's no SYN act, but you know the network is open, right? Things like that, right? So many times from security perspective, you're able to see that, but from the email perspective, hey, the email team not aware, and people are things not working. I said, hey, before everybody aware, I basically we can tell them, hey, the domain is broken. Your mail server cannot talk to the other one, right? And when they check, hey, yeah, you are right. All right, that's why we can add values to the full team per se. So attack detection and so on. I've done it for those who attended my previous session. This is just a review, and some of you are not attended. So this is just to give an idea about, hey, for detections and forensics. There's one part is detection, and second is you use it for forensics. So detection, you just need enough information for you to do correlation to come up with the event of detection. But when you start looking at it from forensic perspective, now you need to have the payload, you need to have all sorts of detailed information, the timeline, and so on. All right. So these are some of them that you need to have. You need to take a look. You need to know the security controls, the firewall, the IDS, the different type of firewall. Many times I ask during interview, can you tell me how many types of firewall? They don't have the understanding, even though they are working on firewall, right? So the packet filtering firewall, that one is very simple. All the TCP header, TCP and IP headers, they will basically look at the IP address, the port number, and so on. Very, very high level. just for those header information, and they filter based on that. The reason is you need to be very fast as they're looking at a lot of packets, so they need to do a simple stuff. So that is the packet filtering. Usually you put it at the outer facing, internet facing perimeter of defense. And then behind that, you have the stateful firewall. So for those who studied about um, segmentations on the packets, fragmentations, and so on, you need to know that basically certain attack command can evade detection by uh, uh, defragmenting the content of the command. All right. So if the command is in packet A, the second part of the command is in packet B, then the firewall will skip that, saying that hey, nothing malicious in that. But stateful will combine compile the whole fragmented packets, and then look at a full domain, full command. So that's a stateful. There are ways to attack stateful as well because they require a lot of memory. And last one is application firewall, the proxy that you use, and so on. All right, those are mainly the three different type of firewall. And each one has different capabilities. So when you do forensics, you need to know which. I've from my experiences, including my previous job, I've been in debate with the work and firewall team. Oh, they said nothing there. Everything's normal. I said no because I look at the DMZ. You basically the attack is already past the first firewall, and it's already seen on the at the host level in the DMZ. So that means two of your firewalls already been passed, right? Take a look again when it's oh yeah, you're right. Right. So that's the thing, right? If you know your stuff, people cannot bluff you. So then the IDS IPS, I go quick now, and audit capabilities, and then host level defenses. So host level EDR, um, the full capability with correlation and everything called XDR. It's just like a SIEM, but specific for EDR. But with EDR, allow you to extensively use the Mitre attack framework because you can set certain rules within EDR to check at registry level, at file level, and so on. All right, with that detail, then you can look at it for any changes. For example, is any persistent entry has been added into the registry, EDR can detect, right? If the EDR itself has not been attacked, right? So those at the host level, antivirus and so on. And then the other consideration at the network level, the complexity, segmentations. There's a lot of things that you need to understand and consider, right? You don't have to uh, get this knowledge on your own overnight. You work with the team, and then from there you can gather the knowledge from them. Lastly is understanding the assets within the environment. All right. So many people they have the whole environment, but they do not know the segmentations of the systems, the severity, the criticality, the basically the value, high valued servers containing what databases. So for example, you got multiple appliance, basically applications within the environment. Application A is used internally. Application B is used externally for the client and so on, right? Which one you want to consider high valued server? So the external database containing customer data. Customer data means what? You must comply with PDPA requirements. You must comply with RMIT requirements. All of that, right? So you need to understand which one. Determine the criticality depending the value of that to your organization. This is just kind of overview about the attack, right? So the attack will coming from the internet, potentially, not all of them from the internet, sometimes from the internet. They will basically hit the the outer facing IDS for detection, the firewall, and so on. And then from there, going inside. If they pass the inner firewall at the host level, if you are using IDS, potentially you missed it. But if you have the uh, XDR, then potentially you have a rule set that can detect. And one thing you need to remember, many of the providers, the solution providers, they have a whole set of rules. Um, when this default set of rules, you just enable that, and then you said you're done. Many times for very sophisticated threat actors, they know your capabilities. That's why in your resume or in your LinkedIn account, you don't state any of the products. You just state a high level general experience in SIEM, experience in IDS, experience. You don't state I'm using Cisco IDS. That is first sign that this guy doesn't understand about security, right? Even though he's working on security. He put in the information that allowed the other side able to know about your internal capabilities, and then from there they can deduce, he's using Cisco IDS, he's using Snort or whatever, and then these are the default rules. Okay, let's test our tools, make sure it will not be detected, and they run it. Yeah, it's not detected. Means what? They run against in our environment, all the default rules will not detect, right? This is I'm talking about the real scenarios, right? In a real attack. So what you need to do, beside the default rules, you need to pick and choose which one is what you need. This is where the knowledge, your judgment is critical, and then you need to create some um, basically manual and own creation rules to ensure that anything not detected by the default, you have your own rules that will detect. And many times the attacker will miss that because they do not know what rules that you created, right? So you can use the Mitre framework as your basis for that, right? This is very high level. I'm gonna go quick on this one. So there's a threat modeling. You got four types: attack trees. You got stride. You got directional attack library. So when you look at during the incident response, you look at the incident where the event occurred um, at the, let's say, at one of the application server inside the environment, not even in the DMZ. Now you use this threat modeling to determine how the internal application server got compromised, and this will help you to determine what are the system that you need to investigate. Potentially the application server is internal, but you have a web server in the DMZ, right, which has already been compromised, and then from that web server, it's basically compromising the application, and then from the application server, usually the database will be compromised. And then from what application, you can determine if other application directly integrated to that application is also compromised. So you use this threat modeling because in order for you to do the connecting the dots, you need to have certain thought process, and this will help you. All right. So this is an example where using the attack trees, you will see that okay, web app got attacked, and then from what? From network, physical, and then from the network, is it APT? Is it from the test environment? Many times, if you are some of you are students, I know that, but some of you doing part time, you're already working and so on. Many times, including some of the very serious ransomware and hacking attack in our country, where you see that some services actually down. The attack actually occurred on the test environment. So you get the SAT, UAT environment, where SIT is testing the systems and the application, UAT testing the from the user perspective. Many of these servers sometimes require connection from the internet, and they are not fully They're not in production. They're not fully hardened per se with all the security requirements. Because said, we just need to do some testing and then done. All right. Within that 1 day or 1 week that they need, you got compromised, and then the rest of the environment got compromised. All right. So you can use that. I always use this threat modeling in my investigation, in my analysis, including the design analysis. So I will use this from the threat modeling perspective, and people cannot basically cannot counter your argument because of that, right? So for this one, it's directional, outside to inside, and so on. You can combine any one of them based on what it is, and then attack library. So if you look at it, okay, hitting the application server, but then does it impacting whatever? Is it basically SQL injection happen? All of that, right? So you can look at it from the WAP's perspective, the top 10. That can give you the idea, and then will help you to do that assessment. So now we get into the Mitre attack framework. I'm not going to cover a lot as well. You can go to the website and you can read further. They have a detailed linkages between the phases, the exact event, and so on, and then the sample. They have done a tremendous exemplary job in doing that. Previously, and during my time, I don't have this, right? So we created our own. Um, but the key is, if you look at the title at the top there, it's quite similar faces to the cyber threat intelligence 7 layer. I call it 7 layer. Burritos. There's one type of food when I was in US called burritos. I think in Malaysia and in Taco Bell they have that as well, but they have it 7 layer, all vegetables. That was my favorite back then. But the key is reconnaissance. You have techniques that's covered under that, and then initial access. How do they initially able to compromise your systems? And that is the initial vector that they come in, right? Remote services, exploit, all of that. Drive-by, compromise, drive-by, right? So you visit certain website, that website's already compromised, containing certain web exploit. It will you and then you run a browser which is not up to date. It has a 0 day, for example. You just go to the website, it will automatically run on your browser, and then install the downloader. The rest is history, because the rest, all the malware will start downloading from your browser, and you're not even aware. All right, so that is the initial access. So you can see is the execution, persistent again. They want to have the persistent access to the system. They start doing what? Adding entry into the registry and so on. Each one of these can be uh, an indicator. When you combine with the CTI, and then you combine with this, so if let's say you look at one system it's already compromised, and you look at web browser. If it's web browser, then you can take a look from here at what level of what phase of compromise that happened on the web browser. Is the web browser internet facing, or is it only internal and then application facing? So if it's application facing, potentially the application itself already compromised. And then from there is actually compromising the user. You use this as your guide and look at the details. So from that, if you know that it's an execution at that particular user, now you will do memory forensics, you will do detailed host forensics and so on at that particular host, looking at the execution part, right? And you nail down. So good example here is schedule tasks and jobs. So for example, user might say, I've had experiences where user complain at that specific time at night when I was on VPN, my mouse will move by itself, right? Your detection doesn't tell you anything about this, but users complaining because of that. Means what? you look at user mouse control, and then you go back. So for example is let's say mouse application, right? You look at the application perspective from the mouse movement, and then from the mouse, who's actually controlling the mouse, what services, from what services you analyze that services that controlling the mouse services, and then you can figure out. I'll talk about that on the process perspective on doing the analysis at the memory level later on at the end if you got time. But that is a thought process that once you look in detail about this, you can connect the dots, right? So example here on execution. So beside the first part is command and scripting interpreter. Now you have different types. You have the PowerShell. A PowerShell is internal, so it's already there on your Windows. So if they send a text file and then that text file later on change into a PowerShell script, your detection pathology will not look at it because you're looking for executable, right? It already bypass your detection, and then from that PowerShell you start drill down on the PowerShell actions and so on. All right, so that is from the framework perspective. This is example of the APT or threat actor that's using that specific attack, and then you will see the command or keys that they executed. So all of this is there, so you can take a look, right? You can and then from that keys, you will have if it's Windows, then you have the event ID, and then you can take a look at the event ID. In this case, 4738. It tells you the user account has been changed. All right. And so the key is when you use the Mitre attack, you need to familiarize yourself with that, as I mentioned earlier. And then you can use it to create detection. If you have XDR, some of the XDR actually, I'm not sure whether that's open source. Potentially there is for just a license for personal use. You can play with that. All right. So this is what you're looking for. You can do a detection as well as do a further forensics on that one, right? So you use it to detect on anything that trigger. Once it's triggered, then you can do basically forensics analysis further. This one is just to give an idea from the attack perspective and a defender, right? So as you can see, the above is the attackers, the bottom is the defenders. From seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, and years. And many times, the attackers are already sitting in the environment within months or years, not even detected, right? So usually, if you are using SIEM to do a detection, if you missed it, done deal. You will not be able to detect further unless something happened, right? So that's where the threat hunting analytics is required. So once you found something, then forensic investigation will start, right? So let me get into the memory forensics. Before that, do you have any questions? This one will get a bit more technical. Any questions? I like people with name started with A. There are multiple Ame there. Ame, any questions? Ame 1, Ame 2, or Ame 3? Or could be the
Hmm.
same person.
Anybody want to ask about the Mitre framework tags? Okay.
Hmm. Oh, this is the first time they heard about it.
Mm,
It's out there on the internet.
some maybe already familiar, and maybe some uh maybe new. Uh, Anybody want to ask any questions about the Mitre framework, attack framework, eh?
Mitre or
Application.
the 7-layer.
Adik kata no questions.
Okay. All right. I think we can proceed with the forensic. All good? Wow. Up to this
Okay.
point, if I were you, I got a lot of questions. Actually, I attended one meeting on the ID type initiative previously, right? And so for me, when I listen to certain things, people might not aware. Maybe you aware about Padu. You know Padu, right? Very
Oh.
recent initiative. I was
Hmm.
not referring to that, but there's an example. Mm. So Padu was established. I'm not sure if any of you potentially involved or not. Maybe if you are working and with the government agencies and you're involved in that initiative. But by experience, right? If you look at the product and the product has certain vulnerabilities, and you look at the protocol and the basically the process that they incorporate into the product, you know by default that certain capabilities actually missing in that product development. Good example, Padu actually allows the recent vulnerability found allows other user, if they know other people's IC number, they can take over and reset the password of that owner of that IC, right? Because on the connection, the API connection backend allows such thing without any input validation done. And API authentication used for the user, I would consider lame one, very insecure. Means what? One of the critical roles for that project is missing. Security architect is not there because protocol is not secure. The process, validation process is not secure. If they have the security architect, they will let him in. You cannot use the protocol, you must use ABC. If you're using API, you must have ABC. It will dictate certain requirements in order for them to enforce security. That was I've been doing in my previous job. People don't like me, I connect with them, I can shake hand, we can talk, we can smile, we can laugh together. When we talk about the discussion about that particular protocol, I said no, right? You need to have someone who can dictate with his knowledge. So that's the thing. All right. So but just looking at the product itself, missing A, missing B, missing C, missing C. I don't even know about the process back end on the product development, whether they're using SDLC or they're using Sprint, what do you call nowadays, right? All of that. So that is critical actually from security perspective. You need to be embedded into the agile. Thank you. Yeah. So agile sprint, right? Um, Many times agile sprint, if they're using agile, that's where security could be missing because they run the sprints very fast. We need to come up with feature A, B, C, get it done, 1 week done, and then every day they got to update. If security is not there, done deal. Okay. All right. No question. So that means
Simple
say goodnight.
question, Cik Fazil. Cik
Yeah.
Fazil. Just simple question about just now. Ni, yeah. Can you just the difference between threat detection and threat hunting? Sometimes some people are a little bit confusing. Either it some mention, but it's just same. What the difference between threat
Mm,
detection and threat hunting?
okay. Before that, that's from the detection perspective. I Let me ask you a question, or anyone who can answer. What's the difference between penetration testing, red teaming, and then red teaming and attack simulation, as well as purple teaming? Any of you aware?
And anybody can answer? Try answer.
So the purple teaming consists of red team, blue team, and purple team. And then red teaming is by themselves, and then simulated attack as another one, and then pen testing, and then maybe code review, source code review. Three, five of them. What's the differences between all of them?
Hmm.
Actually, they are
Same.
okay.
No.
I about to answer. I'm asking first. Anyone can answer?
Ah.
Yes, many actually participated in the capture the flag, hacking contest, and so on, right?
Hmm.
Those five is all about that. I already pretty much answered the question. They are all pen testing. They are all doing the penetration testing, but the scope is different. The scope
Hmm.
is totally different. The skill set, yes, some of it are actually the same. Some of it maybe not because they require further detail skill set in certain areas. For example, if you do source code, you need to be very good at the security code security, where you're able to know at the code level and find the vulnerabilities of that code, right? So pen test, usually you're testing the application and you are given a scope. Only test this application, don't test the rest. You're given 1 week to get it done. That's it. It's a very limited scope. And then you got red teaming. Red teaming, they have no time per se, but they will test whatever it is as they think necessary until they find any vulnerabilities involved within the environment that they are tasked with. And then you got the purple team. Now you're testing the defense and attack. The attack will try to bypass the defense, the blue team, and see whether the blue team can determine who's actually doing it, and so on. Red team will not tell the blue team whatever they're doing, but red team, when they facing hurdle, then they will ask the purple team, hey, I cannot bypass this encryption. Okay, can you allow me to get through? So the conclusion is this encryption cannot be bypassed. All right, so let's see if we are already inside and bypass that encryption, then what else we can do? All right, so they give access. All right, now you are inside. Go test the rest. All right, so that's a purple teaming, and then you got the attack simulation. They will act as if they are the real attacker. They will scan everything. They will coming in through everything. They will do everything they can. They will test everything within the environment, just like the attackers. They will hit this application server. They will hit that DB. They will hit. They will do the lateral movement. Keep jumping here and there, and they will basically keep track everything. Put a report, detailed report. What the tool they use, how do they compromise, and then what's the impact, what's the recommendation. And then if they got the full simulation attack, they will have a long list to remediate. And sometimes it may take years to remediate that because it's impacting critical system, whatever, that you cannot do until end of the year and so on, right? So those are based on the attacking skills. Now you got 5 different jobs. So when we talk about detection, there are many types of jobs as well. So those who are doing the detection, they will look at the SIM, pretty much under the SOC, Security Operations Center. In the US, my team back in 2001, right after the September 11 attack, um, the Intel team, my team was among the first SOC at the enterprise level back then, right? All right, so that was back then. All right. So nowadays, SOC become a norm because let's say for banks, it's already mandated to have the SOC. So you are looking at all the incoming. So for incoming attack, you have detection, IDS, and so on. Logs, you use SIEM, the correlation engine, to um, to do the detection. So you can use the Mitre attack framework as part of your correlation. You can do other things, right? So you can use CTI data. Any attack coming from this IP is considered from the attacker, right? So you are looking at all incoming. You're not looking at all the previous one. The past is already the past. You only actively looking at what incoming, and you try to detect as it goes. So what happened is from this diagram tells you that detection is usually for the from real time now, near real time, which is seconds, until the basically the past few hours. Usually that's where the correlation engine for detection can do. They cannot basically, okay, if you see this basically attack coming from IP, and that IP was basically seen a month ago, the SIEM cannot do that. It will bog down the performance, and uh, and the systems will be unusable. All right, you cannot do that because you might be able to do it offline. All right, after the detection, you see something like this, and then you do offline checking to see whether it hit the IP of the threat actors. Right, so you just see the basically limited hours for your detection. Right, the more real time, the better. But if you miss that, nobody will look into it. That's where the threat hunting comes, right? So the threat hunting, they will detect anything that is missed by the detection, and they will see the try to find any threat actors or basically anomaly within the environment that otherwise not been seen, right? So those are the difference between the threat hunting and the detection. So threat hunting will require more attack knowledge, and that's where the Mitre framework will be very very useful. Hopefully that
Cik
answers.
Fazil, ada
Yes.
soalan dekat chatting tu.
Chat, yeah. Uh, other framework in security. Okay, hold on. Salam. Is it involved only about tools that should be used, or standard matrices that need to should be aware of, or standard procedures should be followed? How to implement MITRE framework, or other framework in cybersecurity cases? All right. So, Anwar, you are a full-time student. I believe, right? Because you have not seen it. So MITRE framework is just the detailed assessment of what things can happen at the host level if the systems got compromised. So they previously they analyzed the attack, and they look at what are the potential things that the attacker will do if they want to compromise a system. The initial part that they have to do is what, and what is basically what will be seen at the host level. So they're collecting all this information depending on the phases that I mentioned. All right, so means what, depending on your role, you can incorporate that data into your process. You might not see that yet, because if you have done one of the job, for example, SOC, security detection of forensics, or doing pen testing and so on, you will see, because every it's similar. The metaphor is like you go to the jungle, you bring chainsaw with you, and you are cutting the trees, right? And then later on, people are asking, who cut these trees? Who cut these trees? So the MITRE attack framework tells you, if you cut the trees from the bottom, you will see these are the evidence. If you cut the trees at the branch level, you will see evidence. Maybe it's not really messy, but if you cut the whole tree, is you will see other trees will be down as well, right? So MITRE already set all those evidences. What will happen to the environment, to the host, inside that framework? So if you go detail, Windows, for example, if you change the password, so for example, is I already compromised the system, and now I want to take over the domain controller, and become one of the domain administrator. So I will create a new account with a domain controller privilege, domain administrator privilege. When I created that account, two part. One is creating new account. Second is assigning domain administrator. That two event will have a event ID in Windows if you set a proper auditing, right? So in the Mitre attack framework tells you if they are doing this, try to compromise the domain controller, check if they have account created and if domain controller administrator level is assigned to that account. And you check, yeah, that's true. And if you are doing the pen test, you're doing the red team, you are doing that as well. From the evidence perspective, that is happening. So Mitre already said it for you. So you just need to use it to whatever that you are doing. So for example, if you are security engineer to set um, XDR or EDR, right? Or let's say you are the auditor, you are the auditor. When you are the auditor, you will check and you're auditing a system. That system said, oh, we have hardened the system um, for compliance and we are fully compliant. And you are the auditor, you go to that system, okay, dump the log for me, right? And then you basically ask for one of the administrators some access and then you create a new account. And then you basically, when you created the account as an admin, and you want to see whether the SOC will notice or any of the security team will be aware that hey, a new account has been created as a domain controller administrator. Nobody even highlight or created an incident that domain controller has been compromised because a new account has been created. There should be throughout the detection process. Once the SOC determined or detected there's a new account has been created, they will check the account is maybe just evil or something like that, and then they need to check with AD team. Hey, did you create an account? And the AD team is not aware. No. So let's say if the process for creating domain controller administrator account will require change management approval, for example, and then you check there's no change approval. So that means this is unauthorized. And nobody even highlighted that. So if you're auditor and you tested that, nobody highlighted that as an incident. There's a gap in the security process, right? So depending on your role, you can use it in any way you want. Okay, hopefully that answered the question. Okay, so for forensic per se, there are multiple specific framework. The ISO, for example, there's a 27021. If I'm not mistaken, you can check. The ISO, there's a specific forensic incident response framework, and then NIST also have it, so you can search for it. So you should, and then if you take like a sense forensic courses and some other certification courses, they also covered those framework from their perspective, and some of it covered as well. um, just to ensure that the comprehensiveness of your process, that's where you might need to check this framework to ensure that your SOP don't miss anything. Previously, me and my team at Intel, we rely on NIST. NIST, that is a US standard institute. They have that very basic at that time, so we enhance that on our own, the details, right? So you can refer to those. The difference between Mitre framework and kill chain. So Mitre framework is more at the attack, that basically at the host level attack sequences and events that detail out everything that occurred at the host level. While kill chain is um, cyber threat intelligence um, phases of attack, right? So and from that kill chain, you can break it down to areas where you can focus on the CTI. So kill chain is more on the CTI level, right? Cyber threat intelligence. Because for kill chain, each of those phases, they will detail out on the TTP's TTP means tools, technique, and procedures, and they will tie those TTP to each of the phases in the kill chain. So kill chain was created before Mitre framework. So that's the thing. And kill chain covers end to end. Doesn't matter it's host, network, whatever it is, right? But Mitre only covers at the host level. Okay, hope that answers. Anybody else? All right, thank you. Let's move forward uh, with the memory forensic. So this one is quite a lot. I'm gonna cover quite fast. We still have 2 hours. I'm gonna leave. I try to target to finish 30 minutes before the 2 o'clock, so that you have some time to question, to ask questions. I'm looking for more questions. Yeah. All right. I cover some of this information from um, the initial part where you how to get the memory dump, and then after that some analysis. So if you want to go to detail about memory forensics, you might want to get this book, Windows Internals by Mark Razinovic, David Solomon, and Alex Lanescu. So it gives some highlights into that. Some of the highlights there maybe not as detailed as some of the analysis done by Sense, for example, but it gives you tremendous knowledge from this book. So I really recommend for you to get this book. It's not in Malaysia. You might need to buy it from Amazon and so on. All right, so there are multiple operating systems. You got Unix, Linux, and then we got Windows, and compared the rest, Windows, because it's their own I would say closed source, right? Their own intellectual property. So Windows created what we call symbols for all their products. So that simplifies the kernel or the OS itself, where these symbols are actually representing the virtual memory addresses for the values that it requires for its function. For example, is key weight for multiple objects is a symbol um, was called, and it will make it easy for you to look for certain functions. So rather than using the specific addresses, they just basically use this symbol. If you want for this particular function, you just look for this symbol and you get it, right? Rather than using the specific hexadecimal memory addresses. And where one is difficult for you to do the forensics to dissect that. And second is each of these addresses will change depending on the location of the memory, and that become a tremendous work, right? So it's not recommended, but Windows already done it for you. All right. So when if you are more interested into becoming malware forensics, malware forensics will require you to do a reverse engineering, and reverse engineering will require you to have knowledge like debugging and assembly language knowledge and so on. If you like that area, then I've done it a while back, about before I came back to Malaysia, when I was in the US as when I established the malware lab. But I've left it very long time ago, right? So one thing about Windows, because it's closed source, and what you can do for your forensic is um, a black box test. You do not have the code for you to do a white hat test. So the inner working part of Windows actually is hidden. You do not know. So what you do, you start doing it on your own. This is where a number of times when you do forensic for Windows, it's quite challenging, but it's very rewarding because when you do the analysis at the same time you are learning. All right, and they keep changes this OS without any warning. So they didn't tell, okay, we have this patch, it will change this and that. No, they just basically update this patch is for security reason, and that's it, right? They just give some high level explanation, not the detail. For example, Windows XP back then, Windows XP and Windows XP SP1, there's a big difference because they, if you are using Nmap, for example, the Nmap has a feature that they can use a raw socket, right? When Microsoft updated Windows XP to XP SP1, Spec 1, they blocked the raw socket. So some of the features are no longer working for Nmap at that time, and some scanning also not working as well. So they have to update the software in order for it to work, and some of the features will not be available because of that. So Microsoft didn't tell until you run the application and say, hey, how come I didn't get the result I wanted? And actually it's already crippled. All right, I'm gonna go faster. Why memory forensics? There's a lot of things, a lot of reason. Among them, if you look at the Mitre framework again, where you look at the structure of the host registry, for example, and then you can what do you call it? Re-establish or recollect all this evidence from the memory and go back into the Mitre. If you see those changes in the registry, for example, I have that slide at the end of the presentation. It can tells you basically this changes has happened, and some of the changes in the registry, believe it or not, are only in memory or sometimes. And attackers, if they are good enough, they can change the configuration of the registry changes that they are making on the system so that it will not be updated into the file system. So you're not getting the update into the registry files, but it's only in the memory. So it means what? If you do not perform, if it's not written into the logs or written into the file system, it will not be seen in the log, not in the log, right? So the only thing that you can find is in the memory. If you're able to dump the memory, where's the content? It's still there. So that's why if you involve incident response, so usually there's two roles there. One is incident response is to obtain the evidence until the forensic analysts who are more veteran and more knowledgeable come in and analyze the evidence or the image of the evidence, right? So that means as a incident response, maybe someone need to mute their.
Nur Hayati, Nur Hayati, Nur Hayati, Nur Hayati, please mute your ni. Okay, thank
And
you.
potentially the host has the power to mute somebody else as well.
Ah,
Yes.
nanti saya mute dia tak
Maybe the
terdengar
host
suara.
doesn't, yeah, doesn't
Okay, okay.
realize about the power of a host. Yeah.
Thank you.
So okay, thank you. All right, so that is the differences between the memory forensics and the media or OS forensic from the media perspective. Some of the evidence doesn't exist at the media, only in memory, right? Um, this system architecture, I covered that before from previous presentation and previous classes. I gonna maybe go very fast on this one. Right? All of this. You need to know this because I came from Intel, which is the one who actually created this architecture. All right. So the multiple architecture, each one has. If you go to the assembly language, go to the bottom level, firmware level, each one are different, and the OS also different. All right. So because of that, the virtual memory of each of the OS also different, and the format is different. How it basically seen at basically the virtual memory on the host disk itself, storage, also different, right? So that is a challenge. So that means what? um, Not just the OSs. You need to know the architecture, the CPU, the chipset, and so on. If you're using x86, x64, each one is different. The most common one nowadays, we are using x64. Some of you might still using x86. To know the difference is, if your memory cannot be more than 4 gig, you are still running x86. That x86 potentially run as emulator on the x64 for backward compatibility purposes. So you cannot run away. It's still there. If you are very interested to know, there's a two links, x86 and x64, IA64. Those first three actually um, developed and produced by those two, Intel Corporation and AMD, while ARM is by the ARM group. ARM used to be owned by Intel by one time, and then they sold it off. And then I mentioned about that 32-bit limitation on the x86, while x64 will have extra memory, but it includes some of the x86 instruction for compatibility purposes and so on. There's some limitation on the memory, addressable memory, and so on. So you can read about this. All right, and then the tools, you can read about that. The framework for virtuality. So virtuality is very very useful and extensive uh, tool. So this framework has been established back then. There's a virtuality foundation there, and it's still been updated if I'm not mistaken. But it's very advanced plugins that's already been created by the security community for this virtuality. Because of that, if you're interested in memory forensics, you want to play with that. This is one tool that you should be playing with. The challenges is it's created using Python. Those who know Python will more benefit from it. But um, you need to install Python in the environment. Most of the time, if you run Linux, it's easy. So to be a good security professional, you need to at least good at Windows, not just Windows desktop. Most users. I'm a security professional. I'm good at Windows desktop. Windows is a whole environment. You need to know the Windows Server, Windows Active Directory, Windows Controller, Windows application. There's a number of things. Very, very complex environment as well. So if you don't get the chance, maybe I would suggest, as part of the courses in the university, get the proper Windows Server licenses, and then set up the AD Active Directory, domain controller, and the whole enchiladas per se for Windows environment, Windows network for students to play with, right? And then uh, create the ghost image of it. So if everybody screwed it, then you just reblast that image and then build the new one. That would be good. I think if you use it for education, you can get either free or very very small amount from Microsoft. So each one are different, right? For Unix and Linux, you should at least know one flavor of Linux, which is free. You can download for free, and then you can play with that. You can get a SUSE, you can get Ubuntu, you can get Red Hat, or they call it Fedora, and you can get the CentOS for the server version. All of that's already available. So nowadays it's easy. You are very lucky. You got the VMware player also free. You can run those Linux, and then you can play with that, right? You need to familiarize yourself, master these two operating system in order for you to be a good security professional. All right, so this is just a beginning kind of command. Image info, PS list, PS scan, profile of the system that you need to determine when you are analyzing image of the OS. So what happens when you get an image that you need to examine? Many times, sometimes the incident responder didn't even tell you, didn't even keep a note. This is what OS, what's the version, service spec, what's the date set on that system, and so on. How in the world I can find out about all of this? That guy is not working, not doing their work, right? Whether he's not fully trained or he's lazy or what, right? Time to basically do your own stuff so that you'll be able to gather the information you require in order for him to perform your job, right? So these are basic command that you need to know that you can extract the information that you wanted out of the system. So image info command, for example, you get the KDBG, kernel debugging data block. Some of you might have not heard about all of this yet, but welcome to the forensic world. These are information that basically that you need to know if you're becoming a forensic analyst. All right, and then the data on the creation of the image, and then you can determine the OS and service spec level of that image, as well as getting the date and the time the memory image was acquired by the incident responder, right? So KDBG is a magic value where it determines the different type of OS. So Windows XP, Windows 8, Windows 7, whatever it is, even nowadays Windows 11, which is the latest one, also has its own KDBG magic value. So by determining this value, you can determine, hey, this is what OS. And then the value also change for each of the service spec, right? Now, people don't tell you, but you know what it is. That's the advantages of people with knowledge, right? You know a lot more knowledge, sometimes you become quieter. And because actually I know. He's not telling us. All right. Later on, I'll get it. All right. So this is how you extract the information. You run the 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 volatility command -f Windows 7, which is the image of the file of the evidence of the OS, and then image info, and then they give you the information there, right? So there's some advantages there. You can read. I will give this slide in PDF to Dr. Vakaria, that so that she can share with you. Right. So I give some explanation there about ES layer, the image data and time and so on. All right. Now the PS list. So this one, you want to know what are the processes that is maintained in the image that you given, right? That you need to analyze. So there's two filter there or parameters, minus small p and minus big P. Those are two different things, right? Small p is based on specific process. So small p, what process that you want, right? Big P is the physical address offset. So maybe you're familiar with PID, process ID. You got a PPID, the parent process ID, and so on. When you look at the task manager, right? However, if you do a forensic analysis, don't trust the task manager. The task manager could be Trojan, so some of the processes will not be shown. So one way to do it is doing memory forensics analysis. That one you cannot hide it, right? All right. I will skip it. That's a good enough explanation there. So what happened is some of the orphaned processes or terminated processes can still be around. Can be seen as a double link list. You see at the bottom there, there's a command.exe. threads is 0, session is 0. That's a date, a start date and exit date. It tells you what it used to run before, and you still have visibility of this command was run on the system. At least now you know that, hey, this process used to run, and what kind of process is this? And now you need to do a further analysis, right? So at least give you some basically trigger something that has happened previously, so that you can start looking into more details. For the structure, you can run the PS scan. It give you the structure in the memory pools. All right, so some of the processes could be hidden. So as mentioned earlier, you cannot trust the task manager on Windows, but you can run PS scan. That will also identify if any hidden processes are to run on the system in the memory. All right, so a number of detailed information that you can see there. The Internet Explorer update and so on. These are all the processes shown there. Some of those involve enumerating processes that might be terminated or deallocated, but not yet overwritten. So what happened is each processes when it run in the memory space, similar to this, it will run on its space until it's overwritten. So even though the process is been killed, that process and its content is still there within that memory space range, right? Until it's overwritten. So you might be able, if you do quick enough, there's still that system has a lot of unused memory, then very unlikely that space will not be overwritten. If you have very little memory left, there's a lot of virtual memory running, very likely it's overwritten, right? So you can re-extract that information. Um, with the PS scan, you can also reveal the e-process block, which is from the previous boot. So not just, so what happened is sometimes when you saw a system, hey, system is not really responding, you just reboot, right? And then when you are coming in as a forensic, why did you reboot it? We have lost a number of potential evidence in the memory. Well, it's not in the SOP, right? There's no process that do not reboot systems for investigation. Or sometimes they know that they're gonna do analysis on my system, and then they just reboot. However, not everything is lost, right? So when you run PS scan, it can reveal some of these processes blocks that still there from the previous boot, still not overwritten, right? So when you do acquisition of the memory, whether you want to triage or full memory, depending on what you have. If you are doing acquisition on the server with a lot of memory, could be gigabytes, could be terabytes, server level, right? So even your hard drive is only nowadays what, 8 terabytes maximum, and how long it takes for you to dump that memory? It's too long. If that happens, then you need to do a triage. So if you do triage, means what? You just take a portion of the memory space, whichever that you have interest, you ignore the rest, because otherwise you won't be able to perform the full acquisition of the memory either, right? Um, I've seen people having that challenges. If they are good security forensic professional, they will come up with ways to handle that, right? So that's why when you create the SOP, you need to include all of these potential challenges, right? And many times the SOP only cover media forensics, not sufficient. Um, so this one, any question for this one? I don't think so. I'm gonna skip this. These are different type of tools that you can use for triage, right? And then recall. Some of these already discontinued. Some of the tools are still available. All right. So this memory acquisition. One thing you need to remember: memory is the most volatile information on the system. So if you don't do anything, it change. Even if you do something, it will change. So from the forensic perspective, forensic manner in doing the acquisition, you want to acquire the memory as little changes as possible to the memory space, right? So for example, if you want to connect a hard drive and you want to do a drive mapping, network, what do you call a network share to basically dump the image and so on. One thing you need to remember: if you open anyone I've seen, if you open a Windows Explorer, the so-called Explorer, you open that Windows Explorer. If you monitor the basically activities on what's been written, what's been written, and what is I think that's I haven't used it for a long time, but previously file there is Microsoft purchased that tool from a company, just open source, and then make that as one of their tool. um Registry,
So Windows
registry is one.
registry.
No, no,
Windows
no.
registry. What?
Regmon and Filemon. Yeah. So Regmon is Windows Registry Monitor, and Filemon is file monitoring for Windows. You can Google and take a look. Filemon and Regmon. So when you run that, you open Windows Explorer, you will see like firecrackers, so many things that is doing. So it means what? If you want to do mapping of a network drive or something like that, part of your acquisition procedure, do not open um, Windows Explorer. What you need to do is open command command prompt. So if you do a command prompt, you open that up. So you got a CMD, and then make sure you trace whatever changes that you make. So if you run CMD, the command console, at what time? So you must take notes of what you're doing. At what time is now? 12:35. Run CMD to map drive. Now, when you do analysis later, you saw that well, CMD has been basically run. What is a CMD? What's the purpose of it? You forgot that actually you are the one who run it, right? End up you are doing analysis on that, which is misleading, and you are shooting your own foot. So take a note so that you know at this time. Oh yeah, I'm doing this, right? So things like that. So that's the thing about memory acquisition. So if you have done memory acquisition before, you will see sometimes that if you, depending on the tools, you can also use DD command, believe it or not, and then you map that through Netcat. I've done that as well. I've done it doing remotely on when I need to do forensic analysis on somebody else's system. I do not want them to be aware of I'm imaging their system. I've done that remotely, right? So you can redirect the DD command into Netcat, and then redirect that mapcat output to your system, and then dump it into a file over the network, right? Forensic can be sneaky as well. All right, and then you basically do the memory dump, right? But of course, legally, you do it per procedures and per ethics. All right, so if you want to know details about the evidence collection and archiving, you can check RFC 3227. That's one of the standard you can refer to. Um, Usually, you do not require administrative rights, but sometimes do. So you need to take a look at that one. The effect of the acquisition. Um, the tools that you run to acquire will be will leave its footprint. So depending on the tools that you are using, some will have very little footprint, some of them might be more. I would prefer not a GUI application. I would prefer some command type application because it has less footprint in the memory. DD is one of them, and some of like if it's using agent, like in case enterprise agent can also be used, a number of others. So if you get into forensics, then you should analyze and evaluate all the tools that possible and check whether it meets your requirement or not. So to do the acquisition, it can be a hardware, could be a software method. So hardware, sometimes you can, for system has a firewire, you can do through the firewire. For PCI, this old system using that card, PCI acquisition. Nowadays, none of the laptop have that. I think FireWire only Mac. Even FireWire, it's been replaced with Type C, right? USB Type C. But USB Type C doesn't allow you access to memory space. FireWire does. That's why that's a pro and con. And then if you are using software method, you can dump the memory itself, or you could extract from the hibernation file. You can suspend the virtualization software. You could also extract from the Windows crash dump. So sometimes you can initiate the crash dump so that the window blue screen will appear and then start the memory crash dump. You can do that as well, depending on what you try to achieve. You can use any of that, and then you can use a standalone acquisition tools as well, right? So firewall, as mentioned, it has a direct memory access, so that's why if you have firewire and you lock your system, even if you have a cable and lock that laptop, you might want to be cautious because by injecting or connecting a firewire cable or device to that laptop, they can have direct memory access, right? Windows hibernation, on the other hand, um, maybe none of you, for me, I like to see everything. So all my system, I will enable view all files, view system files, view extension files, all of that. And every time you will see the hyperfield.sys. You might not aware if you never look at it, right? That is the hibernation file. So there's two files in your C root or C colon backslash on if you open up the Windows Explorer or command, right? You will see hyperfield.sys and hyperfield.sys, and second one is the virtual what's the name of that? Hyperfield.sys and virtual vmem, I think. I forgot that one, but it is there. You can take a look. .sys. So these two files, one is the virtual memory file. So every time in the memory space, if it's fully used or basically it's not, it will alternate the content, right? So content that's not actively used on the memory, it will dump into the virtual memory, right? And then it will go up and down depending on the needs. And then if you are putting your system into hibernate, then you set the hibernation. You put the system into a hibernation file. The first thing that hibernation file will do, hibernate will do, is it will dump all the memory content into the hyperfield.sys. So once it's dumped into hyperfield.sys, you actually have a copy of the
full memory content, but is compressed. Means if you try to open, is look garbage. You need to run certain command tools to decompress that before you can do the analysis on it. So the hyperfield.sys is the last image of the memory from the previous boot, right? So you can use that for your analysis as well. But you need to look at the date. Sometimes they haven't done the hibernation for some time, so it may be really outdated. So if you run virtualization, you can suspend that and take the image. If you do a crash dump, you can manually invoke it. I think the tools under the MySys internal, you can check. MySys internal, there are multiple tools within that. FileMon, I think that's included. FileMon and RankMon. So one of the tools, not my fault, it can invoke the crash dump or blue screen of death, so that the memory dump will be dumped into a file. And then you can use a live KD, but this one require a Win debugger, and you can play with that as well and see which one works for you. The memory acquisition, some of this consideration of choice, you need to look at the memory footprint, the permission required, device memory acquisition, page zero acquisition, where does it start? Because otherwise, if you force, let's say if you run a DD will try to run every memory space in the memory, and then if it hitting the memory block where memory space where is still having certain execution, certain processing, you will not be able to run it. So you need to add some command to skip if you cannot read that memory, and then move on to the next. Otherwise, it will just hang forever. All right, so let's go into this one. This is new content. I just added. Still tip of iceberg, but at least give you some hints on the memory artifact. All right. So what happened is I will cover the first part, identify row processes. So this one will tell you on to determine whether the code is injected into the memory and how to detect that from the memory analysis perspective. And then some more after that. Some basically detection. All right. So what happened is very common techniques. Code injection is done by attackers to influence the behavior of the victim's process. So they inject the code into the process. So when they inject the code into the process, they're making the good process becoming a bad process. This one very commonly used rootkit is a term. Back then when the first rootkit was created, there's a book. I used to have a book. I still have it, I think. Some books I given away. So book about Windows rootkit. The guy who actually created wrote the book, he's the one who actually first created the rootkit for Windows. Prior to that, only Linux and Unix environment. But that was the first time that rootkit was created for Windows. So they are following this. There are multiple techniques, of course. One of them is code injection. So when they inject a process, most of the time, if you open the task manager and you look at the process, you will see a very common process that runs, but it runs multiple times, but doing a different thing, right? So easily that process could be hijacked, and then they run another process with that good process, but with the injected code to run other things. So there are two ways of them to do the code injection techniques. One is they create a new thread, and basically with that new thread embedded into the code, and then they execute the code. And then they run the code in the original thread. So within that process, the process has its own thread, and then they run the code within that thread itself. Many times because of the way the injected code runs versus the normal process, it looked very similar. And that's where you need to understand about your environment, the application, how it behave, and then to avoid any potential false positive in your analysis. So these memory code injection techniques, there are multiple of them. Set Windows hook, execute, and then create remote thread, reflective DLL injection, process hollowing, DLL site loading, and so on. So if you are learning about reverse engineering, you will have to learn about all of this. This is not comprehensive list, and I will cover only the first part, which is a set Windows hook execute. All right. Otherwise, it will be all day, right? Not just 3 hours. All right. So for this technique, the purpose is to support the hotkey function in a legitimate application. Many times, you might use hotkeys. You might not be aware, but hotkeys could be very extensive, especially if you're doing like graphics, you are developers and so on. To save times, you use hotkeys. Many times in creating document and so on, you might use it as well. Control C for copy, Control V for pasting, Control S for save, all of that, right? So it's easy. Make it easy for people to use these hotkeys. However, with this code injection technique, they can basically insert, they call it message hook, into that application, so that let's say if Control C is to copy, but instead of copy, you will do something else, right? um, this technique, set Windows hook, only um, vulnerable for keyboard and mouse input, not for remote and so on. So think about, many people would think about, because it is a desktop, right? You talk about just a laptop, PC, and so on. But in the enterprise environment, you have remote desktop protocol, RDP server, where people remote controlling into the RDP and create the desktop on that application server. Could be a Citrix remote desktop, could be VMware Horizon desktop. These are virtualized environment where they have their own desktop within that environment. And let's just imagine if, let's say, something like this happened in this environment, it would be a big impact, big impact. Um, all right, so they attack the process by inserting a new message hook or hook it in the DLL, and then the malicious DLL is loaded within that process. So this is an example of stages of injection. So malware initially will pick the process, right? Will pick the process, and then it will use this technique, set Windows hook, use this hook, and then it will basically add the into the DLL, the evil.dll. Now the evil.dll contain new function, the filter function, and that will be loaded into the GUI process on the desktop. So you will see a process in your GUI, maybe a task manager or whatever, and within that it contained, within that DLL that runs, it contained the evil function. If you are interested on this, you should look into malware that using this injection technique, and then you can see how it works. So in this case, explorer.exe, as I mentioned, is very common. So if you open Windows Explorer, it will open up the explorer.exe. If you're doing some other things that explore, doing the navigating within the file system itself, it will also open explorer.exe. And then there are some network processes like spool, no, not spool. I forgot what's the name, but very common. If you look at the network activity, you will have that process, and many times the malware will inject itself into that network process there. So in this case, it add that function into explorer.exe, and as well as the firefox.exe. So the explorer, remember the function of the Windows, and then at the same time at the browser level. So now your function, certain function that you try to do, and the Explorer and the Firefox are already maliciously controlled. I'm gonna go a little bit faster here. We have about 1 hour left. All right, so and then you basically to detect that, you need to identify the global message hook, which is the message hook. Um, is message hook also has is a plugin actually under Vitality. So if you have that plugin, you can run that, and it will enumerate all the global message hooks, and then hunt down the DLLs, which is malicious. Um, Another method to determine or detecting this is through the enumeration of the table, atoms table, the strings and so on, which is quite extensive. So, of course, this is not for newbie, but this is more extensive analysis at the good at the memory level. Another method is non-good memory image. So you have before and after compromise, and the last technique I would say good if you want to learn. So you have the malware as I mentioned. So remember, if you want to play with malware, there's a website containing many type of malware, um, and then you need to create basically air gap systems. You can use virtual or not. And this air gap system is not connected to anything, and you basically connect to it. Once you're done, you reghost or basically delete the whole thing. Don't even clean it and then try to use it. That could be something that you overlooked, and then start compromising or basically attacking other systems you got in at home or in the office. All right, so you can create your own malware lab, and then you take a snapshot of the memory, you run the malware, and then you do the comparison if you want to learn about that. All right, so what happened here is the VAT is virtual address descriptors within the DLLs. Um, what happened is the malware author, they can hide their programs as packed and or encrypted data in the executable. So this is a very common techniques. When you are facing with executable or malware, many times the malware itself is packed. There's certain packer that will anonymize the binary, right? So make it difficult for you, because it's when it's compressed and it's packed, the packer actually anonymize the binary. So any notes or any text within the binary is gone. You cannot read it. So if you try to do a string analysis, nothing appeared because everything is already anonymized. So you need to unpack that first. If you know it's been packed, then you need to unpack first. Again, if it's encrypted, you need to decrypt it. So one way to do it is, many times this compress and pack malware, it need to run, right? So if you dumped and then you got the file, you cannot analyze it. But then if you run that file, very likely it will unpack itself so that it can run. So that's how you can get a copy of it, and then it will run and add itself into the memory. So from the memory allocation, this decompressed malware, now you can dump it into VATs for the process, and then you can basically look for the hidden code also got dumped within that VATs. Um, you can also look at the program that download the second stage from the network, where basically when the program download, it stored into the allocated memory and then executed. This is a little bit abstract, I would say, because none of us are reverse engineers, but if you start studying into that, you will see this. So another things that you need to learn, need to know about is the address space layout randomization, ASLR. So prior to Windows Vista OS, this is a while back, executables and DLLs, they're all loaded in static location. So within the OS itself, it always run on the static location. Now, once you know the basically the memory location, then you can easily inject shellcode into it, which is make it vulnerable. So what Microsoft did is they make it randomized in terms of the location. So if you look at the diagram below, the pre-SLR, legitimate.exe, and then the injected DLLs, you got the legitimate DLL. So within that legitimate.exe, the executable and the DLLs, you have space. So you can inject the DLLs before the rest of DLL, so that once the legitimate exe is run, it will try to load the DLLs. So the first DLLs loaded will be the injected DLLs. So that makes the Microsoft Windows vulnerable to this injection. So what they did is they randomized so that the DLLs will be in different location. Now we talk about, before we get into the nice one, let's at least get some view of assembly language. I know not many people like assembly language, but for security, it still cannot run if you want to do a low-level analysis. Many times you look at the application, the binary, and so on. Again, if you look and analyze binary executable at the memory level, you still cannot run away from it. So if you look at the VATs here, you have the command actually being run. Of course, this is actually a binary command. This binary command from the binary is being changed into the assembly code, so that at least you can see the movement or the function that's been added into the codes. The codes has been added into the VATs, right? You got the push, move, subtract, call. These are assembly language function. I'm sure Dr. Fakira still remember, right? And maybe any of you students also very like to do reverse engineering as well. So this will be your playground. So this is example if you do malfine. So malfine is another filter command that that you can find the vets in the services.exe. In this case, there's two type. One, this is the first one, which is suspicious. It contains the PE executable, but wasn't backed by a file. Remember, memory will be loaded from file, right? So you have the file, and then the file being uploaded into memory. And then with that file, reference to the files, registry, and so on, there is a path pointing back to the original file or keys, right? But in this case, you will see if the executables wasn't backed by a file, you know, that is actually is contained within the memory. And in this case, in this analysis, the memory ranges between 0x7E0000 until 0x805FFF00. This is address space within the memory. So the total is 0x7FE1FF00 bytes, or equivalent to 2 gigabyte of memory space has been used by this executable. That's quite big. So what is this executable is doing? And then if you look at the string on the far right at the top there, under protection 6, you will see MZ. So MZ means is executable. So if you look at the header, file header information, MZ is executable. And then if you look further string of that after the MZ, you will see a string stating that this program cannot be found in DOS mode. So that tells you this is an executable. So this plugin can dump that memory location associated to that VAT file, so that you can start looking into further detail and reverse engineer. When you disassembly that, right? Another executable that you found at the start of a VAT. So this is also a behavior. So what happened is when you look at the VAT, right? And it wants this function to execute, then it will add itself to the beginning of the VAT. and there's a possibility either that malcode, the malicious code, has been decompressed. So when it decompressed, it adds itself into that space or that location, or the executable code was injected directly without a PE header. Either one, and those are malicious. All right, potentially malicious. So for shellcode identification, on the other hand, um, this one is just for information. If you want to go further detailed analysis, you look for this something like this. This is a jump call instruction of 0x17700090, or a call 0x49EC16E9. That's a jump or call instruction function um, for shellcode identification. The other one is function prolog, push EBP, move ESP, and then EBP, and then subtract ESP at the end number. So if you're not finding any evidence button, there's a condition that need to be met to be flagged. One is execute, protection level include execute, not mapped to file on disk, not all zeros are entirely paged out. So number two is what we discussed earlier, not having a file mapped. And then for registry, um, for those who are still new on Windows, don't even know what registry, it's a collection of database. So there's a lot of, it is actually a database within a registry, a lot of keys, event, and so on. And they have what we call CM Hive. CM stand for configuration management for the Hive structure, right? So this is one example. You got the root node, so H key local machine could be the path, and then under that you have the multiple keys, different type of keys, systems, current control set, services, TCP/IP, parameters, interface, and so on. And then under that you have the values, right? Under interface you have, so let's say this is a network card, so the first network card, and so on. Right, so those so just imagine each of the slashes, between the slashes, those are the key, representing a key. Another type of registry values, again, I'm talking about all of this, I would say, foundation information first before we get into that. So this is a symbolic key. So from key to another key, for having the values. This is similar to shortcut, I would say, in Windows, but in registry they use what they call a symbolic link. All right, so it's not, is potentially you have a key, but the key doesn't have a value, but it's containing or having a symbolic link to another key with a value. All right, so this is example of registry Hive structures. So you have multiple configuration measurement Hive, and then you have the Chem Hive list, where it start with signature 0xb0b0. So the hive is called bees and hives, so that's why from the bees. And the registry whole structure is called hives, so registry hives rather than beehives, because it's quite similar in terms of the structure itself. That's where the name comes from. Right, so from here you will see the hives started with a H hive, and then from there you will have different type of structure and content. And then that include the file full path, file user. If you open up a rec editor, you will see all of this, right? But this one will give you the view from the forensic perspective, much more detail on that. Okay, so for registry volatile and stable keys, there's two types. One is stable keys are the one that's loaded from the SAM file. SAM file is on the disk. So if you go to C Windows System 32, and under that you will have SAM file. It's a hidden file as well as protected file. So you cannot open it. You cannot. So you need to uncheck the view to hide operating system files before you can see that. So the under SAM, there's a lot of basically security data, including the password hash and so on. So this volatile information, on the other hand, only loaded on the memory for a certain amount of time, very short period of time. It remains in memory and not saved into the basically a registry file. So because of that, if you have a system already been shut down, and then you take the image of that, and then you try to do analysis of the registry files, you load that registry and then try to look for the information. Some of this information might not exist because it's only in the memory. Okay, so if you look at the registry cell index translation, hexadecimal representation of 0x81C78E48, the first part of one bit is V, right? And then the next one is table. The next byte is entry, and the next byte, the last one, is offset. So if you convert that into binary representation, that's where we have to dissect that information. If you want to more detail, I keep the reference there. You can go to that URL, and then you can learn more about this translation. All right, let's take a look at this Vitality Registry plugin overview. Hive scan, Hive list, Hive dump, print key, audit poll. All right, and then the plugins: shim cache, hash dump, cache dump, LSA dump, get service IDs. The names already tell you something. All right, so if you want to dump a local account password, you want to dump the cache domain password, you want to dump the LSA, local security authority information. The previous one, you got the audit policy plugin as well. This is very, very nice. So if you get a chance, you can play around with this and try these plugins. All right, so this is example of Hive list, registry Hive list. So this one, you run the command Vitality using the Hive list filter, right? And you got this. As you can see, there is a memory address on the first two there, start address until the end address, and you can see that there's no file reference path, file path reference. If it's from registry, you got the registry machine and system or hardware, whatever it is. If it's from files, so the top one you say system root system32 config SAM. Again, the SAM file contain security information, right? So in this case, that security information, the SAM file has been loaded into the memory for some services. However, this the first line, no name, actually empty there. There's nothing because it's potentially malicious. All right, so if you set the local audit policy setting, for example, so from there you can check the you can parse the local audit policy from HKLM, local HKLM, and then security policy, and then pol audit policy audit EV. And then if you want to reveal evidence of the execution, again, if you want to reveal that certain process is executed in the memory, you look for app compat cache database registry entries. So in this case, you run and parse the information under registry system, current control set, controls session manager, app compatibility, app compat cache. So this key is not updated until system shutdown. So that means if the system is still, let's say the malicious code is still running, of course you will not see that. But if it's run before and then the system already shut down, then you will see it. You will see the key there. So this is example. um, evidence of the execution. You run the shim cache. So the first time, last modified time, is the date and time for the last modified of the file. So good example is you got msoobe.exe. The first time it was modified, the file is 11:42:30. However, the last modified time for the application compatibility cache entry, which means that this msoobe.exe was executed, was run prior. The date is different, 4 p.m. 43 minutes and 35 seconds at a different date, right? So so the file was initially last modified 2008. So that was maybe it was the install or the patch been updated or whatever it is. And then the last execute is that new path date. So from there you be able to detect the last executable that's been run on the memory. So if you look at this list, you can look at what executable has been executed for the last. So let's say the system was compromised at 11 a.m. today until 12 p.m. So because of that, you run basically you parse this data, and any executable run within that time, that would be your suspicious um, processes that you need to look for them. This one is looking at the registry from the driver process. So you run the pass system control current control set control session manager, and then this one is dumping the content of clipboard. So if you copy paste something and put it into the clipboard, sometimes the attacker also need to copy paste. They take some data and then they want to paste it so that they can send it outside for exfiltration. Then you can dump that data, the content of the clipboard. You run this parse, the clipboard parsing filter, then you'll be able to get the information that you want. If you want to run and extract the command scan, so all the command history, this is another favorite process, because as I mentioned earlier, even though you're doing forensic, you want to make it less impact to the image. So you run command console. Same thing. Attacker also like to run command console, right? So you can extract that information from the memory from the command scan filter. This one, as the name pretty obvious, hash dump. You can dump the local account password hashes. It's actually coming from the SAM file, and then dump it into um, basically and extract it so that you can use it for your investigation. Okay, so in conclusion, right, I've covered a lot. Skip and make it very short for some. Otherwise, it could be a very long discussion. So I covered three different framework here. One is cyber threat intelligence, the cyber kill chain, and then the Mitre attack framework, and then basically the memory forensic investigation from the incident response perspective, so that at least give you some idea when you are facing an incident, a compromise, hacking, ransomware, and so on. At least you get an idea on how to look at and where to start, and then what information that you can dump. Actually, that's a lot more parsing you can do, a lot more data that you can extract, a lot more evidence that you can obtain from this analysis. This is just the tip of the iceberg to give you some idea what you can extract, what kind of information you can basically collect. And then from all of this, you need to remember, as part of the goal of security is investigation. During the forensic investigation, your report you need to rebuild the chronology of events, the time-based chronology of events. So it means what? This executable been run at this time, right? The next one, what? The next one, what? So take note of that. So basically, you can use forensic tools, even the free one has that what you call um, note kind of note feature that you can take notes and then you write notes there with the time information embedded into it. So if you modified time is 11 a.m., you can keep the basically the time, and then you put a note there. This is the time detected of the spools.exe actually run, and basically code was injected, and then what? So from there is easier, and then you will see from the chronology of event what time the compromise, and then at the end of the day when you go back to the entry point where the vector of where the basically the initial access was compromised, and then it's easier for you to conclude and then create the report. Otherwise, it will be too difficult because you will deal with a lot of information, and sometimes what happen is I dump it to Excel, and then so that I can rearrange the date and time. Otherwise, it's quite difficult. But it depends on your preference. If you have the commercial tools, those are embedded. You can search, find the information, you write the notes, and then the chronology of events already been created for you. With that, thank you very much, and back to you, Dr. Fakaria, for any questions.
Okay. So kita open kepada any questions from the students. Tadi pun macam ada beberapa questions juga.
Other question.
Any questions from the students? Sambil-sambil tu kan, Cik Fazil, if
Yes.
your laptop ataupun you have been attacked by ransomware. So
Mm.
as a forensic team, for the first step lah, nak buat apa? Kalau yang dia melibatkan, sebab everybody knows that if you're attacked by ransomware, dia kan macam encrypt everything kan. So as a forensic, apa nak buat?
First of all, you can hear me. So first of all, we need to understand about the modus operandi of ransomware. One is they do a denial of service attack to your data, and second is they ransom that data. So that means they encrypted that data, and then they ask you for payment. Third one, they will exfiltrate the data. So previously was not. Later on, they also exfiltrate the data. If they can extract that data, they will basically export it out, and then they will sell it in the dark web. The fourth one, if they cannot do any of that, they just corrupt the data. So if they corrupt the data, not much you can do to recover that data. You just have to rely on your backup. So the first thing, as a forensic guy, if you are facing ransomware, the first thing I would ask is, do you have backup, and your backup is offline? That's the first thing. I would ask, but at the same time, you need to start with containment. So if you are doing basically involved in the incident response, so first thing you need to do is you assess, and part of the detection, assess the basically extent of the compromise, and then you start with containment. So when you do the containment, that means if that server is in the network, you remove it from the network. That's the first part, so that other servers, other systems will not get impacted. So if you got multiple servers already impacted within the LAN, then you isolate the LAN. If it's already within a certain network, you isolate the whole network. That's the first part. The second part, once you do the containment, you need to start having the images. So you start doing the acquisition. So once you start doing the acquisition, you need to identify the type of malware, ransomware that impacting you. It depends on luck. Some of the malware, ransomware that there are ways to decode or decrypt. The keys are actually recoverable. Some of them are not recoverable. That means you have to either pay. Some of them, they automatically corrupt the file and they're not asking for payment. That one may be a second or third phase. So first time you're not paying, third time you're not paying. This guy will not pay, so they just corrupt the whole thing. Either way, from legal perspective, paying the basically the criminal is illegal from the law perspective. Illegal. So you do not want to be caught. For those who are actually in, like in my role, we do not want to be caught paying that. Second is it is legal that you can hire a data recovery company to do that for you, to recover.
Yeah, wait, you mentioned that illegal?
Yes, you paying criminal.
Why?
So that
Oh,
means
tapi kita dah
you,
decide to
you
let
know
them
you
to
have the
download.
ransom, right? You have the ransom, saying that
Uh-huh.
your system has been infected with this ransomware, and then all your file has been encrypted. You must pay in crypto money, right? And then if you're not paying, you won't have access to your data. So what would you do? Many times, if you have a full backup, you say, so we just reblast the whole thing and start over, and then recover from the backup. Some companies, some organization I've seen, their backup also impacted. So what they do is they have the backup, and the backup and snapshot are all on another server, which is actually connected to that server within the same network. So good luck. All the backup files are also encrypted. So what's next you can do? Your only option seems like you want to pay so that you get the key, right?
Yes.
That is actually illegal. In
Mm.
Malaysia, I'm not sure because our cyber law is so nobody want to use it. Nobody's scared to use it. If somebody want to use it, the whole community will bang on you. Hey, you are whatever. Because
Adli boleh komen sikit ke? Adli, you are dia yang jaga cryptocurrency. Adli, are you there? Kita kalau kita bayar boleh kata illegal ke? Adli.
I suspect it will say no comment.
Okay.
But but the thing is, it's like you paying a criminal, right? In the US, there are CISOs from companies caught and going to jail for that. So the thing is, you need to do analysis and identify what type of ransomware that you are infected with. If uh, the version of the ransomware is basically you have remediation basically methods. There are option there that you can recover the key, and then from the key you can recover the data. That's possible. Remember, this ransomware, majority of them, they are using the standard um, security cryptography algorithm. That's your part. So that means what? If we are using AES as an encryption standard, de facto standard, they are using AES as well in encrypting our data.
Tu ada dua orang nak respon. Adli dia ada problem dengan mic. Reno,
Okay.
respon dah sikit Mr. Reno. Reno daripada Naksa.
Naksa, okay.
Oh, boleh dengar ke?
Boleh, boleh, boleh.
Ya, saya dengar.
Sorry, saya sebenarnya kat luar ni tapi saya cuba respon lah. Macam tuan cakap tadi, illegal in US. Betul. Kan?
Hmm.
There's a specific law in US yang prohibit you from paying the ransom lah. In Malaysia currently belum ada any law ataupun apa, any policy lah regarding paying ransomware. But if apa NASA has been handling some of the ransomware cases before, and memang kita against lah paying the ransom tu, sebab there is no guarantee that you gonna get back your data, and it's gonna just open an opportunity for the criminal to continue lah, to continue this apa ransom punya activity lah, because once you pay nanti dia buat sekali lagi, you gonna pay again lah. So that's why apa whenever NASA apa receive this ransomware case, memang kita akan against lah untuk bayar. But I'm not gonna deny that there are some companies, some apa organisation yang they don't have any other option but have to pay because of macam you cakap tadi, the backup tu. They have backup, but is macam the backup is on the same environment, ataupun they ada backup but they have never tested to apa recover their backup tu. So by the time dia nak buat the recovery ataupun the fallback tu, the backup doesn't work. So that's how it is now in Malaysia lah. Okay.
All right, thank you. That's from Naksa's point of view. So yeah, from ethic perspective, yeah, you do not want to pay. But what's your name? Akbarino said earlier. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yes,
from my perspective, right? Been doing forensic at one last time different scope in US, Malaysia, and so on, but within the company, many times law enforcement will look into other, even though in cyber law, for example, it doesn't cover, they will look for other law that applicable. That's why you need to be careful. Because when you are making a connection with the criminal themselves, just imagine like this. I mean, if you are keeping, if you have without authorization, you have a stolen, basically, let's say a stolen car, right? That's considered illegal, isn't it? However, if you have a stolen database, is it considered illegal? From cyber perspective, yes, but if you're not using cyber, but you're using some other law, applicable law, under criminal law, that's potential. So never close the door saying that, oh, because cyber law doesn't cover, it's not covered. There might other avenues using other laws. So on the safe side, do not pay. If the worst case you do not have any other option, you will have to assign or hire data recovery, and they are the middleman. Data recovery company will be the one who contacting and basically arrange the payment, not you directly. Otherwise, you fall into that. But the thing is, be proactive, and avoid yourself from being impacted. That's sometimes quite difficult to explain to people until something happens. Okay.
Okay, any other question?
Boleh dengar saya tak?
Boleh, boleh.
Okay, Cik Fadzil, I'm Adli. I just have one question. Regarding RAS, RAS, Ransomware as a Service. Can you explain a little bit about it? Because somehow we have a case involving RAS, in which most of the threat actor is come from for the RAS is come from Lazarus Group or the hacker from North
North
Korea.
Korea.
Yep. Can you give a little bit explanation about RAS?
RAS make things more complicated. That's the first point. So ransomware as a service means they provide a service so that you can anyone can subscribe to that service, and then per your feature demand. So that means if let's say Lazarus, for example, last time Lazarus is as a threat nation state threat actor, right? They have certain tooling, and then you can see if you are basically monitoring the CTI, cyber threat intel, you will see that there's a lot of copycat. The copycat is because of this RAS. So what happened is RAS or malware as a service mask. Because what happened is they're providing a service where you can request a ransomware or malware, whatever it is, with a set of feature, and then I will basically create it for you. And then once done, I give it to you, and then you just basically execute it. You just attack whoever. So when you are monitoring a threat actor, you're monitoring their capability, their coding preferences, all this behavior, coding behavior. You have that. Now with RAS and MAS, because they're providing the service, different threat actors are actually attacking you and attacking others, but they're using the same or similar tools. So it means what? Your CTI data is getting havoc. You see a lot of copycat, but they're not Lazarus. But Lazarus actually selling that tools to others. That make it more difficult for the security professional from the CTI perspective to detect. So what people do is beyond the tools, they look at other type of TTPs and infrastructure. So the tool might be similar, but their approach in compromising is what? If XYZ, I have forgot, I've left threat intel a few years back. So XYZ will be through email, but this 123 will be through drive-by, basically attack and so on. So they need to look for further information to differentiate between this type of threat actors. By the tool itself, it's no longer sufficient to differentiate because there's a lot of copycat. That's my first comment. I mean, it's a job security for us, as security guys, but make it difficult for our job to accomplish that.
Okay, that's mean in this case, Lazarus Group is a service provider or someone who get a benefit from the RAS.
Based on the sophistication of Lazarus Group, I would say they are the service provider. So last time their financial modus operandi is they will attack people and then they will gain financially, right?
Yep.
So now they change into let other people attack, or they also attack, but they share their tools, but people will pay them, and they get financial gain as well. That's one of the technique. That is one of the revenue generated from the mass malware as a service as well as ransomware as a service. That's my point of view.
All right, thank you.
Welcome. So there's a question here. Mostly for command PSS scan are for Windows. Do you have command for Linux endpoint? So this tool is actually Python based, and in order for you to run that, you need to run with Python, whether in Windows or Linux environment. But if you are analyzing Linux endpoint or Linux memory, you can still run the same command. However, the parser, if it's specific for Windows memory, then that one cannot be run on Linux. So under Virtuality, there's multiple parser that's been added. Other people are added into it. So Windows and Linux alike. There's specific one for it as well. For PS scan, it can run for both. Okay. Any other question? Oh,
Any
okay.
question?
Mariam asks, is there any online class that you suggest a fresh grad to take as a first step to get into this career? Um, all right. So security is one of the three high demand job nowadays. One is security. Second is data scientist or data analyst. Third one, I forgot. Because I just look at my area and that's it, and forget about the rest. Security is one. There are data saying that we need 20,000 whatever. Um, Actually, yes and no. The people that is demanded is the one with experience, right? Those with experience. That means if you are hired, you can do the job on day one. No longer required to learn. No longer. That means you are experienced enough. You can do the job. So, so means what? That's because the job itself, many of you who actually still in university only saw the pen test job. You don't see the uh, blue team jobs as well as other roles as well as non-technical jobs. There are a lot. There are a lot. So if you look from red team perspective, right? You got pen test, you got vulnerability team, you got who doing the vulnerability scan, whatever, and remediate that. You got the remediation team who actually being the middleman between the vulnerability and pen test to the application owner. You got the you got the red team, you got the purple team, you got the assimilated attack team. Those usually the specialist. But at the same time, you got the governance team. I used to manage the governance team. I used to manage a security architecture team. I used to manage assurance team. There's a ID team. ID team also big, usually big. That's a good entry point. You got the SOC team, also good entry points. You got so that means you need to know attack, you need to know detection, you need to know systems, you need to know network. Those must be just at your fingertips. If you still learn, that's fine. I mean, but at least look at some certifications. At least certification itself is the target or the goal, but it's the content of the knowledge. Good example, network CCNA, which is just a single basically exam. Um, Basically for security, IC squared have CC. It's very basic, but then at least there's something. I used to mentor under there's a one under Isaka. So each of these have their own certifications as well as community. So get involved with the community. So we got the IC squared community. Those who are actually certified, as well as if you're not certified, you are interested, you just go and join the event. Isaka, also for the Isaka certification community. Majority of Isaka are non-technical. IC squared are technical. Um, and then we got under Isaka usually auditors, risk managers, all of that. And then you got Sense GIAC certification. If you if you can afford it, I would strongly suggest for you to take it. But it's not cheap. The price keep going up, and then our ringgit is going down. I think the last one still 7 plus, almost 8,000 US dollar without certification attempt. With certification is 8 plus 9,000. So times 4.5, 4.6, 4.7 nowadays. How much is that? About 35, right? 9, 9 times 5. Let's say 9 times 5, right? That's 45. So around 38, almost 40. 40K. Very, very expensive. I'm expiring some of my certification because maintaining is quite expensive as well, from the payment as well as the recertification I have to take the exam. Yeah, so first of all, get familiarize yourself, not just the courses that you take
from university, but expand yourself to other areas. I basically, when I got requested by Dr. Fakaria, yeah, I would like to share. My point is not to educate you everything because that's too much, but to expose you to something, and that from something will trigger something else, and then allow you to start learning from there, right? Because knowledge is, I still learn nowadays. I still learn. Knowledge is abundance. All right, so those are among the certification you can work with. Another thing is, from security perspective, cloud security is another area. And yeah, so that the one I mentioned earlier, security, data scientists, as well as cloud. Cloud involving DevSecOps, DevOps security, as well as basically cloud security. But you need to have the cloud foundation. There's multiple platform. Each one are different. You got AWS, you got Google, you got Azure, you got Alibaba, or Ali Cloud. Yeah, and many others. And then virtualization. There's a lot of opportunities, right? So for AWS, for example, there's the foundation. You can get it for free, but you need to dedicate yourself. This is where only those who willing to put the effort, they will able to move forward, right? Yep. Hopefully that answers. So I'm from Mohaimin. How about atomic red team software to test endpoint security solution like Wazoo? So what's your question about that? Can you specify, Mohaimin? Red team software or pentest software, there's a lot of them, and depending on the function and so on. Relevance from what perspective? If you want to ask whether it's relevance from a knowledge perspective, I'm a guy who actually want to learn everything. Believe it or not, when I was leading the digital forensic investigation for Intel, the whole corporation, right? I got a chance to join workplace violence team. I joined, so I learned about psychology, psychiatry, and so on. I know a lot, except I do not talk much. I look at people, I can know whether you lie or not. So I got training on doing the investigation, interrogation, and interview techniques. I learned about that. If you watch a drama called Lied to Me, anyone watch that? Just Google Lied, Lied to Me, and there's a few other dramas similar to that. So he listened to people, talked to people, and so on. He interviewed people, and then people talk about this, and he start digging further, and found out this guy is actually guilty. That is a skill that I learned. So I learn everything. Anything that I can learn, I learn everything. So for you, just learning at the initial stage, you just need to prioritize because you don't have enough time. You need to prioritize. You need to go to job um, job portal. Monster.com nowadays is what is called. They changed the name. Uh, job for I find job, something like that. They changed the name, Monster.com, and then they got other portal, including LinkedIn. What you need to do is you need to do the assessment on what job you want and what are the requirements for that job. What are the skill set, and you start to target and cover, get the skill set for those areas that mentioned. So let's say if you want to become a security architect. To be security architect, what are the requirements? You need to know about system, you need to know about network, you need to know about application, you need to know about protocol, you need to know about security guiding principles, you need to know all these areas. So what you need to do? List down and break it down to which one that you can learn from what sources. I offer myself as a mentor last time, just for you for reference. Nobody contacted me, only very few. If you have question like this, okay, I want to be like this. How can I get to point A, point B, point C? I've seen not everything, but majority of it, and cover all the domains, right? So I'm just mumbling, I guess. but the thing is, prioritize, set the target, get the data, do analysis about it yourself, and then you ask whoever knowledgeable about it on ideas on how get to the next point, and so on. Okay, hopefully that answers. I mentioned about few security certification. Some security certification like CISSP is only for professionals because it require experiences 5 years, and then you can deduct with degree, master, and so on, minus 1 year and so on. But you need to have experience, but you need to get your hands dirty first before you can apply for that. So get certifications that doesn't require too much cost. Of course, free is preferred, but at the same time, it doesn't require any experience. But the good one, always the hard one to get. Those are the one that HR is looking at. Okay, all right. So question about software to test endpoint security solution. Yes, you can do risk assessment, you can do audit, you can do assurance test, and so on. But the thing is, when you run this um, red team software, most of the time, the software is considered what do you call not passive. They are very reactive, and there's a potential violating the ethics or policy of the company or organizations. So you need to ensure that one, you need to do impact analysis. Some people, even though at work, they just do without thinking of the impact, and then they got slapped on their face. The reason is some of them that I know, and then end up coming to me, and basically I have to help clean up that mess. Because they are good, they are excellent in their job, but they do not have kind of strategic thinking of what's the impact of what they're doing, even though they're doing the job, but not doing it properly. So if you run this tool, for example, Wazoof, right? So it might impact something on the host that you are targeting. That's what you're thinking. When you run it over the network, that tools will send a packet or multiple packets. That packets has to go through multiple network components, security component, and so on. What's the first step? I just run this tool and I just attacking, or basically doing the assessment on that device, nothing else. End up you bring down the firewall, or you bring down the network, hopefully not a core switch, right? So you need to start thinking about what's the impact of such thing. So when you do assessment and so on, you need to highlight, I'm using this tool, what's the purpose, what's the time duration, get a change management approval if it's required, and then do the impact analysis. I'm running this. Is it abrasive? Is it passive, or what? What kind of packet I'm sending? Is it containing malicious code? Does it require administrative rights? So am I using administrative right or not? That will cause impact, right? Depending on what you're doing. So to me, I'm more concerned on that, because over time, I've seen red team who's been asked to leave because of such mistake. They're doing their job, but they're not thinking further on the impact. If you are doing assessment on one host, you bring down the whole segment of the servers, or sometimes the whole network, pretty much the whole business, because one of the critical firewall is down because you're doing some sort of things that that firewall potentially vulnerable. Because firewall can be attacked as well. So yeah, it is applicable, but think further. Okay. Cloud security. um, what happened is for cloud security, even though many people come up with, or I'm certified with cloud AWS 1, 2, 3, and so on, and cloud security architect certification, when they bring that CV or resume, if I look at it, it's missing one big part. You know what it is? Experience. Having a cert, you will pass through HR filtering, but you need to pass through the hiring manager usually knows about that domain, right? So the thing is, when they hire experienced people, they want you to do the job on day one. So if they hired a certified people, can certified people do the job? They don't even know what's the scope of the job yet. They just know some of the skills. Yes, it's good for you to start with, or to show that you have some skills, right? Having this set, but the key is experience, because cloud, if you already exposed to it, a lot of vague areas. It's very vague depending on how you design it. If you design it wrong, the whole thing will be wrong. You have to scrap it and basically, or start over. You cannot, if you do patching and so on, it's quite tough. So the design part is critical. It's critical. And then the way you design, there's so many ways to design. Just imagine for AWS, for example. AWS, it has the storage S3. Not only that, they have, I think, up to 7 different type of storage. Each one has different pricing, different performance, different read-write basically performance, different type. So if you design it wrong, you use a different storage, it will not work perfectly. So yeah, cloud per se is a very vast area. If you go to AWS and then now you have to go to Azure, totally different. High level concept, yeah, but similar, but then implementation, design, and so on, totally different. They have different terminologies, different, of course, from functionality, yes, different terminologies, different design. So that is the challenges. That's why I would say you have to master 2 domain. One is security, and second is cloud. And you have to prove that you have that experiences. So you don't have to jump straight into cloud security because I have certifications. Get any job that will prove that you know about security and network and virtualization and potentially some cloud, because usually for that their cloud presence are only for tier 3, tier 4 non-critical. Their critical systems are all still on-prem. Get there first and then move to full-time cloud. One of the area in cloud is DevSecOps. If you can master that, those are in high demand. Okay. All right, 3 more minutes. Time flies. Any more questions?
Masa tak ada dah kot. Ada lagi ke?
Maybe one last.
Macam Cik Fazil cakap awal-awal tadi, tanya sekarang free, tanya lepas ni kena bayar. So kalau you ada apa yang critical question nak tanya, better tanya sekarang. Kalau tak nanti Cik Fazil charge per hour berapa Cik Fazil?
Oh, a lot. A lot.
Cik Fazil ni mahal tau, bukan senang nak dapat dia ni. Okay. Ada tak? Okay, kalau tak ada, kita akan start lah at least almost at 2 p.m.
Almost
dah.
two.
Yes, yeah. So I hope that everybody dapat knowledge lah daripada based on this presentation, berguna untuk masing-masing punya course. Yang hadir ni dia daripada Masters Cybersecurity and Digital Forensics dan juga for those undergraduate student yang ambil subjek Introduction to Digital Forensics. It's actually a very good exposure and diorang punya group project pun memang kena buat memory forensik pun. So sangat relate lah dengan apa yang diorang buat. So terima kasih banyak-banyak sekali lagi Cik Fadzil and atas you punya kesudian lah to share your knowledge, your time to us. Hopefully hanya Allah sajalah yang dapat membalasnya. So I think that's all for today. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.